大怪盗アルセーヌ・ルパンが残した不思議な宝物ルパンコレクションがギャングラーに奪われた。失ったものを取り戻すために戦う怪盗、世界の平和を守るために戦う警察、君はどっちを応援する？
Hello and welcome to LupinRecap versus PatReview, the podcast that's stirring up a storm. I am your host, Will Kamasi, and with me is my lovely co-host, Fefner Masamune.
I was going to mention how I have Over the Top stuck in my head, but I would just like to take a moment and say that I'm the slightly more coherent one, despite the fact that I'm probably drunk right now.
Today, we're talking about episode 28 of Lupin Ranger vs. Pat Ranger. Before that, let's talk about something that kinda sucks.
Bad dads in media.
Yes, let's talk about the overprotective dad trope. There are many reasons why this one is bad, actually, so let's start with the least upsetting. One, it's always the same.
Yep.
It's always the same jokes. It's always the same stuff.
I'm a dad, and I don't want you dating my daughter.
Writing overprotective dad dialogue has got to be, even easier than writing Thug for Fist of the North Star dialogue. Yeah, because every, Thug and Fist of the North Star, their dialogue is interchangeable, but it tends to be different. With dads, I feel like it's the same 5 sentences recycled over and over again.
I'm my own unique person. And also, if you had a relationship with my daughter, Kenshiro, I would respect you, because quite frankly, you're a strong and kind person. I am, however, a thug, so we are at odds here.
I want that thug, though. I really respect you as a person, Kenshiro, but I still need to fight you.
I am evil, is the thing.
It's what I do. It's what I know. And then definitely more upsettingly, it's one of those things in fiction that tends to normalize bad behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
It reduces the agency of the daughter, it normalizes violence. I guess depending on how you look at it, you could say that it's treating a romantic relationship as, sexual by default.
Mm-hmm.
Because the problem isn't dating and holding hands and kissing. The problem is sex.
Yep.
And that just sort of assumes the sex is going to happen. And that's bad.
Yeah. And really, whether or not it does, that's not your thing. You don't control that, bad dads. Just a message to bad dads out there who totally watch this or listen to this.
You hear that, Goku?
I feel like Goku's actually not that kind of bad.
I know. The thing is, whenever somebody says bad dad, Goku is the first person to pop into my head now.
We need a different version of it, because Goku's bad dad is, if anything, not protective enough, which, you should respect your kid's dignity and let them do their own thing. But also, I don't know, maybe don't just let them sink or swim against frickin' Cell, Goku.
But yeah, I don't really want or need to go into examples for this trope, because it's so omnipresent. Well, enough of that teaser for this episode you're currently watching, I guess. Let's move into the episode proper.
So, we're at episode 28, A Battling Birthday. We begin today following a man who is definitely not a ganglar, as he mutters the name Bistro Jour as he approaches the restaurant. Inside, Umika opens the fridge, but to her horror, she finds naught but an empty pudding cup. She immediately confronts Kairi, because who else would not only eat your pudding cup, but place the empty pudding cup back in the fridge?
Yeah, what the hell, Kairi?
Kairi makes a face which confirms that he is indeed the offender, and offers to get her 3 more. But when she asks him if he'll really do it, he just starts teasing her. Just then, the man enters and drops his bag. Seeing this strange boy tease Umika, the man demands Kairi to get his paws off his Umika. See? I told you he wasn't a ganglar, he's just a dad. Anyway, Umika's dad goes in for a punch, which Kairi deftly avoids. Kairi asks who he is. Umika confirms that the man is her father, which only makes him think that Kairi's leading her on. Umi Dad then berates Umika for moving in where she works. Kairi attempts to deflect him to Tuma, but Tuma notes that he has a fiancé. Or had, I guess. which means Dad turns his rage to a now absent Kairi. Umika's dad runs off after him, but before Umika and Tuma can figure out what to do, Kogure comes in through the back. Elsewhere, Umika's dad has actually closed a lot of distance between himself and Kairi, much to the latter's horror. The two of them run straight into the intro.
Like, that has to be because Kairi was walking at first, right?
I feel like he would, yeah.
Like, there's no way Kairi was dead sprinting out of there all the way. He probably sprinted to the door and then just, strolled around like, oh, wait for him to cool down, and it just hears screaming behind him, just, oh, well.
Though at the same time, it cuts over to the park, and I don't know how close that park is to Bistro Jour. It can't be that far, but, when we cut over there, he's already running, and then he's like, oh god, he's already closing in, jeez. So who knows? Okay, he was walking, then he heard the door open and just started to get worried and started to pick up the pace. We'll go with that. So, when we return from the intro, Umika and Tuma both put down their phones, having tried calling Umika's dad and Kairi respectively. But alas, neither can be contacted during this wacky chase scene. Umika calls her dad an idiot, while Kogure puts down a small piece of paper showing the actual gangler of the episode and whatever treasure he happens to have. It is worth noting that's the human disguise of this particular gangler, which we will not see for the rest of the episode. Elsewhere, Kairi happens to run into that gangler's attack, currently in progress. This gangler corners a young girl, hits her with his natural power, and suddenly the girl's old. To what end he does it, I do not know. Given his and the Podamen's reactions, it may just be a practical joke.
He bought a bunch of stock in, prune juice and dentures.
Ah yes, this is how I'll take over the human world. Nobody expected the prune juice market to get a real boost. Anyway, Kairi looks like he's about to do something, but then he's cornered by a dad. With no way to Kaito change, Kairi instead takes Umika's dad and books it on out of there. On the way, Kairi shows up the pre-cops Pat Rangers by kicking a Podaman that was catching up and then taking out the rest of his pursuers by throwing garbage at them, followed by the garbage can. Kairi, literally better than guns. With some time bought, Kairi and Umika's dad hide behind a statue. Ganglar Sr. and his Podamen, one of whom is holding the trash can, lose their trail. I don't know what's so funny about that visual gag. Just the Podaman picks up the trash can and will not put it down.
I feel like he was trying to find where it was supposed to go to begin with and couldn't.
He's a very polite Podaman. He would have put the garbage back as well if he could figure it out. Unfortunately, Podamen aren't that bright. Behind cover, Kairi happens to mention that people tend to pick fights with him, and Umika's dad shouts that he's a playboy and a punk. Thankfully, before anybody hears the pair, the Pat Rangers arrive and Kaisatsu change. While everyone fights, Ganglar Sr. mentions that his name is Ryug Tamatabako. There, that's a good pronunciation of it. Maybe. I don't know. During the battle, X narrowly avoids one of the Ganglar Sr.'s aging attacks, which hits a Podaman instead. Seeing a dusty Podaman with a long beard immediately break its back, the Pat Rangers realize his power's pretty dangerous. X decides to handle this one, but Senior's got another trick up his sleeve. He uses his stand sanctuary, he activates his safe power and dives into the ground. X is unable to land a shot on him, and even the rest of the Pat Rangers are unable to prevent him from escaping. As the group de-transforms, Noel mutters to himself about attacking an enemy that can dive underground. He seems to realize something and leaves the scene. Still behind cover, Kairi decides it's time to leave, but Umika's dad has already gotten up and is walking over to the Pat Rangers. Unfortunately, it's not to deck Saki in the face. I do really wish he just had that dad sense.
He just walks up and instinctively pushes Sakia unconscious. I'm sorry, I don't know what that was all about. Anyways, thank you so much for your help. He just reaches over and kicks Sakia.
It's really weird. That's what I was gonna do with that Kyrie guy, but
Well, anyways, see ya. He just spits on Sakia.
He's just thanking the officers for saving him, and asks if there's anything he can do to help. Kyrie sarcastically remarks that he's an upstanding citizen. Back in hell, the usual group is talking about Ganglar Sr. Ghosh hates him because she prefers her test subjects to be young. Can't really use those old people parts, they're not worth anything. DeGrandio, of course, thinks it's hilarious that he makes the already short lifespan of a human even shorter. I don't even know how this is going to dominate the planet, but I just like that DeGrandio's into it. And he has a specific reason this time. Normally he's just like, yeah, it's cool. But now he sees the actual poetry in this one. Back in Bloodworld, Umika's dad is surprised that Kyrie waited for him to finish talking to the cops, and Kyrie says he was just concerned, since he's his friend's dad. Umika's dad seems to get what's going on now, and smiles. Elsewhere, Yellow and Blue are on the hunt for a Ganglar, and are already in their Phantom Thief outfits. Yellow wants Kyrie to stay with her dad, so he won't snoop around Jur, while she and Blue investigate Ganglar Sr.'s hideout. At the police HQ, the cops are discussing the case, and Sakia mentions the nice man who thanked them for their help, and Kaitro mentions that it's their duty to help people like him. Anyway, that's the cops for the episode. We cut back to Jur, where Kyrie is messily making a cup of coffee, and tells Umika's dad that Umika's out shopping. He apologizes, and Kyrie mentions that anytime he has friends who are girls, that their dads also hate him. So I guess Kyrie just has an anti-dad aura around him at all times. Umika's dad then badgers Kyrie about how she's doing, and asks if she's ever told them why she moved out. Kyrie mentions that she only told them the vague stuff, which is a good way to phrase she's founding the Hell Mob to resurrect her friend without worrying her dad. We then flash back to Umika's dad yelling at her for her decision to drop out of school. Umika says that she can't keep going on like nothing happened. When Umika leaves, we cut back to the present, where Umika's dad mentions that her mother gave her blessing. So, Umika sends her mom letters, but not him. He also mentions that it's Umika's birthday. Kyrie looks surprised, as does Blue, as we cut over to him simultaneously learning that new info as well. Yellow mentions that her dad probably came by because she's turning 19. She apologizes since her dad came out of nowhere and made a scene. Blue gives her a small speech about dads worrying about their daughters, because he's had experience. When Aya disappeared, her father blamed him. Ouch.
Dummy just lifts up his shirt and points to a knife wound. That's where that came from.
But yeah, I get it. It's understandable. I deserve it. I mean Tuma. Yellow mentions she's surprised that he's opened up to her, since he usually treats her like a kid. Back at Jur, Kyrie assures Umika's dad that she's doing alright. She's been through a lot, but she still gives it her all, because she's tough. As is the coffee that Umika's dad nearly chokes on. This is why Kyrie's not allowed in the kitchen.
Also, add another item to the list of times Kyrie is nice to someone who's not there.
Look,
this is a weirdly consistent trait of his, and I don't understand.
He's just bad at complimenting people in person because it's just too embarrassing.
Never tell Umika this, but she's incredibly strong and I really admire her. Why would I never tell her that?
Look, I'm just saying I respect her, but also, please God, I will die if you tell her. Look, just tell her about how I fucked up this coffee. I'm fine with her knowing that. Kyrie would probably screw up toast if we're being completely honest. Anyway, Kogure happens to come in, and through the door. Sometimes you forget he can just do that. But Kogure introduces himself as the owner of Jur, and mentions how helpful Umika's been.
I'm still waiting for the ultimate power play where Kogure opens the door, walks through it, and then the camera cuts and he also walks in from the back.
I feel like he could do that. He's made a mini-him before. Where do his powers stop? I don't know. Could be anywhere. Kyrie takes the opportunity to slip out, and Noelle happens to be waiting outside, and with a new Versus vehicle in hand as well. At the abandoned hotel, I guess, Ganglar Sr. has returned home to get some rest before leaving to turn some more humans old. But then he's ambushed by the Phantom Thieves, who Kaito change, and manage to dodge Senior's attacks thanks to Kairi's intel. During the fight, Ganglar Sr. tries to dive through the floor, but Blue throws some cards on the ground, blocking his escape. Umika goes in to take Senior's treasure, but he has one final trick. His safe power activates, and he sinks into a wall. Because what is a wall but a vertical floor?
Yeah, I'm really confused on like the hard limits of his power. Because he can apparently only dive through one thing at a time, which is why the cards stop him.
Yeah, but then vertical surfaces are A-okay.
Also, what if that wall had a hole in it? Can he only dive through like concrete walls? Because like most walls tend to be like layers of varying substances.
Well, I guess that's why he made his base in an abandoned hotel. It was abandoned because it sucked and used just one material for everything.
It's made entirely out of concrete. It was the most expensive hotel and it wasn't even any good.
There's some wallpaper some places, but for the most part, just concrete. It was a bad idea for the humans, but for this guy, perfect. Couldn't be better. But now that everyone's in a building, and there are surfaces to dive in all around them, Blue and Yellow are completely at his mercy. But before Senior can finish them off, Red dives in and shoots him. And I do mean dive in because he's on his back and panting when we cut to him. Noel's also there, but he just walks in calmly. Senior's not done yet, though, as he makes his way back into the wall. Red throws scissors to Yellow, giving her and Blue some cover, but they're still not making forward progress. At which point, X tells Red that they should use their new Versus vehicle. Red takes out magic and enters its combination 029 and activates its Kaito Boost, a fancy-ass bow. Senior thinks it's pointless since he can still dodge everything, but then Red draws the magically created bowstring and fires. The shot pierces through the wall and slams into Ganglar Sr. Thanks to some well-placed shot, Ganglar Sr. is eventually shot out of the building, where X just rushes in and enters the combination 3-1-4 and takes the plonge. With the treasure taken, Blue equips the Cyclone and X activates his special. But most importantly, we also get Magic's special move. We cut to Magic's very own Fitty Zone as a target appears over Senior, and the camera moves back through several rings over water. Buildings emerge from this endless sea, and Red lifts the bow up before shifting it down during a countdown. Everyone else also activates their special moves as Red fires, and everything combines into one giant mechanical arrow, which tears through Ganglar Sr., killing him instantly.
It's almost comical how good this finishing move is.
It's amazing. There haven't been that many, dedicated special move zones for any of the other special attacks, so at least in terms of, this show, this is the first big time it's happened, I think. Yeah, I know, though, of course, that it's happened in other Sentai shows, because I've seen a few GIFs of those. Like the Judgment Time, was it?
Oh yeah, where they send the file on the villain to an interdimensional court, which then has a whole trial.
Yep. That
in
rules.
10 seconds.
Senior's safe falls to the ground, and we see everyone affected by his power turn back to normal. Back in Hell, Degranio tells Gauche to give Ganglar Sr. another chance. Gauche is clearly upset, but leaves to help anyway. On the surface, she half-heartedly brings Ganglar Sr. back to life, and leaves without even a wave. I legitimately love her body language here. She hates this so much. Usually even for people she doesn't like as much, she has that saunter in and that sort of cocky wave as she leaves, but she does not care about this man at all. You can tell. So yeah, I don't know if we've mentioned the suit actor by name, but she's good. The Pat Rangers arrive on the scene just as Big Senior leaves, and Kaitro seems a little mad that Noel is helping the thieves yet again. X tells the group that he'll go handle the Pat Rangers, while Goody wanders in and notices that the thieves have magic installed. As X de-transforms, Kaitro asks why he didn't contact them. Noel says that they were a poor fit for Ryug's skill set, and leaves it at that. Meanwhile, the Lupin Kaiser has formed, and Red wastes no time equipping magic. Before it forms an arm, though, it does fire a volley of missiles at Big Senior just to show off. In the distance,
I was going to say it's another example of showing the Zord off on their own. You gotta buy this toy, kid. You don't even need to combine it.
Yeah, it's not quite the entrance that Scissors and Blade had, because they just took down something tough on their own. But still, here comes the blimp shooting missiles.
Also, I should point out that prior to recording this episode, I did in fact buy a few toys from the show.
Ah, yes.
So, I'm gonna make fun of them for their product placement, but I guess it works.
Got him. In the distance, Kaitro asks if Noel built that as well, and he confirms that he did, which earns him a suspicious glare from Tsukasa. We then cut back to Magic swapping out not just an arm, but the head as well. Lupin Kaiser Magic proceeds to wail on Big Senior before Goody really wants to show off the Kaiser's new power. The Kaiser opens up a hand, revealing several cards, which it throws at buildings, causing them to shift around and form a giant dresser. So from here on out, this is basically just the gifable moment of the episode. I think that's what Lupin Kaiser Magic is here for. If you follow that one GIF account, a lot of these shows just have such good out-of-context scenes. Like, over the weekend, I saw one of just some basketball-themed guys just completely wrecking one of the teams.
I actually don't think Lupin Kaiser Magic has been in any of the GIFs.
Well, that's just some untapped material, then. Get on it, Twitter accounts.
I feel like they're holding off until they're further into the next show.
That makes sense.
So they can catch more people off guard.
But yeah, this next stuff is going to be the very goofy stuff that, was hilarious when I watched it, but is definitely really weird when you actually type it out and realize what happened.
Yeah, like, oh, it's magic. You can just do whatever. You don't question it in the episode, and then you have to explain it. It's just like, well, I mean, I guess that happened.
So, Red tells Big Senior that the treasure is hidden in one of the drawers. Big Senior then searches through drawer by drawer, tossing about giant articles of clothing while the Lupin Rangers heckle him. At last, though, he opens a drawer with Red's Versus vehicle, and Big Senior remarks that he stole from the thieves. But Red tells him to look a little closer before laughing, as the Versus vehicle transforms into magic and slams a big ball into Big Senior's face. Down below, Noel is impressed with how cool his creation is, while Kaishiro looks mad, and Saki is jealous, but also very clearly excited. Tsukasa, though, wonders why Noel doesn't use the Versus vehicle if he was the one who made it. Back at the fight, the Kaiser beats Big Senior up a little more before activating the Good Striker Showstopper illusion, or in this case, Lupin Magic Ryugu Castle. The Kaiser tosses out a small snow globe with a castle in it. Or water globe, I guess. It's an orb that has an underwater castle, that's what happens. Big Senior approaches the orb and says that it's his castle, but with a snap of the Kaiser's fingers, the orb explodes, and Big Senior dies in an explosion. That has streamers in it, because why wouldn't it?
Castle thing's sort of a non sequitur.
Yep.
I don't know if it's supposed to be a reference to a castle you already had, or if it's like, you win this castle.
Oh boy, I love castle in orb. Oh no, orb has killed me. The Kaiser separates, and Good Striker goes home even more excited than he usually is. The sun is setting as the group returns to Jur, only to find that Umika's dad has already left. But Kogure is still there, with a gift for Umika from her father. Kairi tells Umika to go after him, and also mentions that they'll celebrate later, with pudding. We then cut to Umika's dad crossing a bridge when Umika catches up to him. He turns around to find her, and she thanks him for the gift. He admits that he didn't know what to get her, and apologizes for barging in. Umika approaches, and tells him to save it until they get home. And, as she leaves, her dad suggests that they buy a cake, and the two continue talking as the night sets in. And God, I love this final shot so much. It's really pretty. Like, the sun is just setting throughout the scene, and then it's finally just dusk at the end of it. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was episode 28.
Yep. A pretty good episode.
Yeah, I liked it. It was pretty funny. But first, I suppose we should talk about the Gangler of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
So, I really like Ryug's design. I think he looks pretty cool.
I like his safe power, almost said stand power. You referenced Sanctuary, which I think is Seiko's, right?
Yes.
Oh, I can't remember what that's actually called. I don't know if that's a legal dodging tactic.
Well, I can always check.
The one it reminded me of is Diver Down, which you haven't gotten to yet.
Nope. That's part...
That's part 6.
6, okay.
But yeah, I like his safe power. His normal power is fine, but it's also like, alright, check that box off.
Yeah, it's a box check, and it also doesn't really cause any actual problems. Oh, by the way, the original name of the stand is Oasis, not Sanctuary.
I'm disappointed it didn't change the name to Wonderwall.
God damn it. But, yeah, like, they figure out what the power is early on, and are like, oh, we better dodge that. And then they do. So nobody on the actual teams have to really deal with that.
I guess they just didn't want to do an episode like that.
Yeah, they got
Kairi, but old.
Yeah, they had the old Potaman joke, and I guess that's as far as that went.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, consequently, he's not quite as threatening, though also he is, of course, the punching bag for magic now that that's been properly introduced.
Mm-hmm.
We did see it a fair few episodes ago by this point, so that's the versus vehicle that Noelle got from Kogure during their very shady dealing.
Yeah, and he refers to it as like Volare or something like that, right?
I do not remember by this point.
But he gives it like an actual French name, which implies that all of the dial fires and trigger machines have normal French names that are references to songs.
Maybe so, yeah. You think Kogure, anytime anybody uses their versus vehicle, just mutters their proper name under his breath.
It's time for Dial Fighter Red. I believe you mean Red Baron. What? Nothing?
But yeah.
I believe you mean Snoopy versus the Red Baron. Excuse me, let me use the full title of that song.
Yeah, before we just move on to talking about magic, as we should really properly do, because that's kind of why Ryug's even in the episode, anything else to say about him?
No.
I kind of
really.
like how his personality kind of contrasts with his design. He's got a vaguely creepy design, but like he's a very relaxed, kind of goofy Gangler. Like, that's kind of neat. But yeah, that's all I got, because he is just there to get owned by magic.
You're just sitting here waiting for the next Lyman.
Alright, so, magic. Good versus vehicle.
Yeah. It is one of those things that, like, if you cared about power levels, this is probably where you stopped watching the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because it can just do anything, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, apparently that's its purpose for Lupin Kaiser magic.
I really like it just from, as a viewer, because it gives Lupin Kaiser magic in theoretically infinite number of finishing moves.
Yes, I'm so interested in that, because honestly, Even the last few Lupin finishing moves haven't been great, or Lupin Kaiser finishing moves, rather. Like, they've been okay, but definitely underwhelming compared to some of the earlier finishing attacks.
Yeah, I think I mentioned before that this show is interesting whenever the characters get new toys,
Yes, definitely.
which is probably why we can never watch older Sentai. Because they would have like maybe 3 finishing moves tops.
Yep. And then they just have that for the entire season. But yeah, it's really cool. The bow it makes is really rad. I like that.
Oh yeah, I always blank on how many other times like that kind of bow shows up,
Yeah, like
but
the
it is
bow
like a
with the
really cool idea for the
magic
bow.
drawstring and magic
Yeah, the drawstring
projectile.
that doesn't exist until you pull back.
Yeah. The one example I know is the Fujin Yumi, which is Takumi's weapon from Fire Emblem Fates.
I just remembered the example I was trying to think of when we watched this. I'm disappointed in myself now.
Oh, what is it?
It's Uryu Ishida's weapon from Bleach.
Ah,
There's like a group in Bleach called the Quincy, and they fight with magic bow and arrows like that.
nice.
I can't believe it took me forever to remember Bleach.
But yeah, stylistically, magic, it's rad, and I can't wait to see more of it. The Lupin Kaiser fights are probably going to be pretty cool from now on.
We do, however, have to point out that the Kaito boost does, in fact, just look like a shitty dual disc.
Yes, I noted that when we watched the episode. Gonna send this Ganglar to the Shadow Realm.
Anything else about magic?
No, I think we're good. It's a cool bow, and it's a cool addition to the Kaiser fights.
Mm-hmm. Which means it's time to move on to Umidad.
Yep. Honestly, God, I wish they had named him in the episode, because it's really annoying to call him Umika's dad, especially when I have to mention Umika in the same sentence. It's the worst.
Yeah. I'm blanking on... Umika's last name is Hayami, right? We'll just call him Mr. Hayami.
Sure, let's go with that.
Despite everything I said in the pre-show about how overprotective dad trope sucks, I found Mr. Hayami actually kind of funny to watch.
Yeah, like, he is over the top enough where you don't get the usual sort of overprotective dad thing, and he also learns from his mistake quickly enough that it's not too annoying. Like, it's not even a quarter of the way through the episode where he realizes, oh, I shouldn't be chasing this boy all over town.
And of course, the person he's upset at is Kyrie, who could obviously take him in a fight.
Yeah, he just doesn't.
Even pre Lupin Ranger, when he was just a street punk, he could probably take Mr. Hayami in a fight.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's, I guess, if you really, really do need to have an overprotective dad, that's one way to do it. Just make the person they're threatening obviously stronger
Yeah.
and not under any actual threat.
Yeah, so Mr. Hayami is just a goofball overall.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of not sure how to feel about him as a dad. He seems like a very realistic
Yeah.
sort of dad, in that he makes quite a few mistakes.
Like, it's the center of the episode that he has made a really big mistake with Umika, and we probably won't see more time dedicated to him and Umika's relationship, but I feel like they had like a decent foothold at least of sort of them repairing their relationship, because he's worried about Umika just running off and living where she works and dropping out of school, but like Umika had a legitimate reason, and like not even considering the Lupin Ranger angle of it, just the fact that she wouldn't want to go to the school after her friend just vanished.
Right? Oh man, there's a completely different show where there is no ranger powers and like the Lupin Rangers are just pursuing what they actually were pursuing prior to their tragedy. But I guess like things move slowly enough that it doesn't feel super cheap. Like the problem with this sort of plot is that it can really easily imply that a parent is entitled to forgiveness, and that's not great.
Yeah.
But for this, forgiveness is just like, I will spend my birthday night. I will spend an hour of my birthday with you, and then I'm going right back to work.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't move back in. She doesn't restart school.
Yeah.
It's small enough that it feels like it's not the biggest deal.
Yeah. They're, like, Umika's dad, or Mr. Hayami, does, he displays enough remorse, and he seems to come to an actual understanding of Umika, and yeah, he doesn't try to get her to go back home. He just wants to sort of fix what the mistakes he made, and Umika seems fine with that, so I'm alright with it in this situation. Again, I would like to see this expanded a bit more, even though I know it probably won't. It'll probably be just this episode, but they did a decent enough job doing some progress in this episode that I'm happy with it leaving off where it did.
Yeah, that's not what the show is about, so it's probably not going to be coming back to that. But enough about Mr. Hayami. We learn a very small amount of the Lupin Rangers, but I think they sort of come together to tell us something important about Kairi. We learn that Umika and Toma have, like, other relationships. Like, losing their loved ones didn't affect just them. Like, Umika, like, had a falling out with her parents. Toma's in-laws tried to kill him. Or blame him for Aya's disappearance. I'm headcanoning, like, Aya's dad showed up with a knife. Because this is Japan. He couldn't get a shotgun in Japan, but
yeah.
Toma's life was threatened. Well, we don't really have that for Kairi.
Yeah, his brother was his only family, and his brother was the one to die, so he's just sort of
like
alone.
Kairi doesn't have a relationship with anyone else, and we don't know about any relationships his brother had with anyone else. So it really sets him up as being the one that has, like, changed the least since that happened. I think, like, way back early in this podcast lifespan, I mentioned it's probably important that in the opening it's the Lupin Rangers that are frozen.
Yeah.
And this just comes back with Kairi. He's not moving on or changing at all. Umika and Toma have had to change because of the other people in their lives. Kairi has been able to just stay in his grief for however long it's been.
Yeah, if anything, he regressed, because now he doesn't even have to face his brother anymore. Any mistakes he makes are just his mistakes. Doesn't have to worry about family anymore.
And like God, it obsessed me so much because the thing that he was supposed to learn, at least from losing his brother, is that you need to appreciate the people in your life while they're there. And what is his, like, super consistent trait? He doesn't say nice things about people when they're in the same room as him.
Well, the thing is, like, he does, of course, still have that appreciation. He's just not great.
You have to let them know. You have to let them know, Kairi. Otherwise, it's just going to be your brother all over again. God. Anyways, Kairi's a doofus, and I love him. Anyways.
So, my viewing of this episode is it's kind of an Umika episode that's not, like, specifically about Umika. Now, it's in part because this is also the introduction episode for Magic, so you have to show off that shiny new toy, but also it's mostly an Umika episode from the point of view of everybody but Umika, which I don't mind necessarily, but also we do need more Umika episodes, so I'm going to hold the showmakers to that a little bit.
I feel like we were spoiled because Umika was, like, really prominent in the early episodes.
She's not prominent enough.
And now she's kind of falling off.
I want more of her.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, in theory, ignoring the fact that I personally don't think there's enough Umika, I do think that an episode about a character from the lens of every other character does actually work.
All right, I was gonna say because it's a different perspective, and pursuing realism for the sake of pursuing realism is bad, but it's a more realistic perspective because you know about yourself, but for everyone else, you only have like what you experience of them and what they tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't really get in Umika's head; we learn about her from everyone, from what she tells everyone else.
Yeah, so you do get a lot about Umika, because, of course, like, first and foremost, she didn't tell either of her coworkers about her birthday. And she does mention that, like, it's not like she knows their birthdays either, but still, it's very pertinent here.
Mm-hmm.
But,
I
yeah.
mean, I don't know any of my coworkers' birthdays from, like, any of my jobs. I mean, I guess the ones where I work with my relatives, I knew their birthdays, but that doesn't count.
You also don't, as far as I know, work to fight the Hell Mob to revive some family member, so there's a little bit of difference there.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
But yeah, we learn that, well, I don't know if we learn so much as it reinforces the fact that, like, Umika has to deal with a lot. She does suffer quite a bit, but she just keeps on tripping. And also, I like the moment she shares with Blue where she's like, "You treat me like a child," and he's like, "Oh, do I?" Like, kind of sarcastically, but at the same time, I still think that Tuma kind of treats her with more respect than, like, Kairi does, because Kairi is the one who goofs with her all the time.
Yeah, the thing about that whole relationship is that Toma is an adult that treats Umiko like a child, but
Yeah.
Kairi is a child that treats Umiko like a child.
Yeah, Tuma's the actual adult in this situation.
And, like, that's so much worse, because, like, being, I guess, like, unnecessarily coddling towards someone's annoying, but when somebody, like, steals your food for the sole purpose of stealing your food, that's way worse.
And then leaves it in the fridge. Just leaving the evidence and acting surprised when they notice.
And as much as we talk about Shogohama's physical acting, I really liked Asahi Ito's reaction as Kairi.
It's so good.
Just stone face for half a second. Stupid smile. It's so good.
But yeah,
It's just like, yep, that was me.
But yeah, I do like Tuma's moment, because, I feel like it's sort of him also kind of acknowledging that, yeah, like, maybe he does treat her like a child a little too often. Just that sarcastic remark, but yeah. And then just, of course...
So how do you feel? How do you feel about Umika being 5 years younger than us?
Fucked up?
I'll have to look up the actors' ages. Because I know Asahi Ito is the youngest and the least experienced, but I don't know if he's actually Kairi's age.
Probably not, I would imagine.
Well, in, like, Power Rangers, it's always adults playing teens, but
Yeah.
in this, like, the characters are adults, so they don't have to cast them as a way particularly older.
Yeah.
So it's possible they're closer to the actual ages, but I don't know.
But yeah, then we also get the family angle for Umika, which is really interesting because everybody else lost, like, family. Because Kairi lost his brother and Tuma lost his fiancée, which I guess technically isn't family, but, like, close enough.
It's family.
It's pre-order family. Not quite there yet, but, like, you know it's gonna happen. You've made the promise that it will happen. But, like, with Umika, the death of her friend was enough to, like, set her back the way it did, where she actually just straight up stopped school. Like, what did Kairi have to lose with his social life? He was in basketball, but I don't think it was a huge thing for him to drop out.
Yeah, in fact, I just sort of assumed Kairi had graduated, but if Umika dropped out, I guess he didn't. Because they're around the same age.
Yeah, probably. So, like, it was a huge deal for her, and I find that interesting. That, like, it is still so personal for Umika to have had that loss that she would become a Lupin Ranger.
Yeah, I kind of want to know Mrs. Hayami's perspective. Like, why did she let her daughter go? Was it out
Yeah,
of respect for her, like in her autonomy, or was it like, get out of my house, child?
it
I'm
was
sick of
probably
you.
respect for autonomy. We don't
I
get
know, but
much
what a
of it.
twist. What a twist that would be.
Alright, fuck off. I'm done with you.
That's obviously not
Yeah,
it, because, like, Umika's still in touch with her.
yeah, they're still in touch, and just from what little we know, she's the reasonable one in this situation, where Umika's dad was not. But yeah, I think that's it for what I have to discuss for the episode.
Yep. And that's about it for me. I just wanted to point out that how we learn about Kyrie by learning about everyone else.
And same thing for Umika. We also learn about her by learning from everyone else.
Yes.
It's a very indirect episode.
Mm-hmm.
But
Which is ironic because the magic arrow was the most direct thing in the entire show.
But yeah, I don't really have too many more predictions. I've got another vague one that's like not an actual prediction and just me throwing a thing out, but is interesting how Sukasa mentions that Noelle made magic but doesn't actually use it, so I don't have enough to actually form a prediction from that, but I feel that'll be important in episodes to come.
Put a pin in it. Well, we know just on a mechanical level, he also doesn't use fire and thunder.
Yep.
He still keeps those on him, so maybe that's what she was talking about.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it is weird that like he also doesn't use the trains either, unless he's like forming as Kaiser or Emperor rather.
Yeah, and even then, he needs somebody else to launch the other trains.
Yes, that's curious. And other than that, I'm pretty sure at some point the Pat Rangers are gonna get mad at Noelle because we've had that point a few episodes now, so hopefully that comes to a boiling point soon, so something actually happens with that.
Mm-hmm. All right, that'll be it for this episode. Next episode might be a double feature, depending on how much new content's in the recap episode.
Yeah, episode 29 is a clip show episode, so I'll see what I can do about that.
And I'm pretty sure I've gotten the number wrong, but I'm pretty sure I got the number wrong before, but I'm pretty sure episode 30 is my favorite episode, so I might be a little pushy, but we'll see when we get to it. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, we are at LRVSPR. Fefner's at FefnerMasamune. If you want to email us, you can email us at LupinRecap vspatReview@gmail.com. And we will see you in the next episode.
Adieu.